Now, as the rallies against gender-based violence gain momentum this week, we're hearing more and more shocking stories about the ways in which perpetrators have harassed and stalked their victims.
Joel Svensson is a security specialist who works with people whose lives may be under threat, and this includes women who fled violent partners. Well, Joel joins us now. Very good morning to you, Joel.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Joel, if you could just explain for us, what is it exactly that you do?
So I'm a security specialist with Protective Group. We assist victims of domestic violence with their security. That can include sweeping their houses, cars for trackers, bugs. We look at their online accounts. We assess their homes. We help them implement better countermeasures. We work with a lot of refuges and support services all across Australia.
You've been in this line for quite some time now. What is the most incredulous thing that you've seen on the job?
I mean, the most disturbing things obviously are the ones, some of the most disturbing ones involve children. You know, I've attended multiple cases where the perpetrator had been found to be abusing the children, and there was an intervention order in place, and yet he was still at large in the community. Another one that comes to mind would be a woman was being tracked through her car. The sort of onboard computer system, the perpetrator had access to it, and he could remotely track the car. Not only that, he could lock and unlock the doors at will. We tried reaching out to the car manufacturer, and they just threw their hands up, which is, actually something I really think big tech really need to start stepping up and providing more support to victims.
Joel, you wrote an op-ed yesterday about how the fact that your job as a security specialist exists, the fact that it exists shows what men will do to harass their partners, and the extent that they will go to harass their partners. This is the nature of your work. And I'm going to quote here, in that article you say, because of your job, you know the warning signs and risk factors, you know how bone deep, how irrational, how deadly the motivations of the perpetrators as well. I guess for those of us who don't understand this sort of action, help us understand this. You've seen this in your line of work. Help us understand the motive of someone who would want to harm the person or the child that they say they love.
Yeah, so in my opinion, it's a desperate need to dominate and control. I think these men are terrified of losing control of the victims. I think it's really the extreme end of not only male entitlement, but male hatred for one's own vulnerability. And these men would do anything to maintain control of their vulnerability, including destroy the person that they feel represented.
Joe, we have to say, though, not all men. We know many husbands, brothers, uncles, fathers, friends who are respectful, they're gentle, they're upstanding. Is it difficult for men, or is it confronting for them perhaps to have conversations about the kind of violence that they may be capable of inflicting on others?
Absolutely. So most men are decent, nonviolent people. I think that's partly why this is such a tricky issue to talk about, is most men can't understand why someone would do something like this. And, frankly, I think some men don't want to understand. I think it makes them too uncomfortable. I think it maybe makes them feel powerless or guilty, or, it may make them get defensive. It may even remind them of their own experiences with male violence. I think male violence is something that affects most people, but it's women who are paying with their lives 1 every 4 days.
You say that big tech needs to step up to try to help in terms of protecting women and protecting lives as well. But you also said that it's more than just technology, that authorities need to set up specialised units assessing and tracking high-risk offenders to preempt the possible cycle of violence. Now, what do you say to people who say, well, that is an abuse of men's rights? Civil groups will push back to say, well, what about, you know, those who are unfairly targeted like men and perhaps even ex-offenders?
I think it's just another form of terrorism. I think we need to take it just as seriously. If that means that you know, some people who are perpetrating domestic violence have less rights, you know, I think that they only really have themselves to blame. I think if you don't want to be the subject of an investigation into domestic violence, don't commit violence.
I just want to go back to something you said a little earlier about big tech and about technology. In your line of work, what advice would you give women to tap on technology? What kind of technology can help protect them?
So there are duress alarms you can buy. We often recommend these to our victims, to our clients. You know, there are watches out there that have built-in GPS, built-in cameras, built-in microphones that, you know, go directly to an operator when activated and call an emergency response for the police. You know, in terms of securing your accounts, you know, just, you know, make sure, you know, not to share passwords, to manage those passwords with the password manager. But, you know, ultimately, I think we need to start taking the burden off women, and you know, go after the perpetrators.
If this story has raised any issues for you, you can get help by calling the National Sexual Assault and Family Violence Counselling Helpline on 1800 RESPECT, which is 1800 737 732.